All right, folks, welcome to the live stream. I'd like to welcome everyone to joining on this one on a Thursday evening. And we have a very special guest on this one. As you can see, we have Magic Prepper. A few weeks back, I appeared on Magic Prepper's live stream, and I had a really great time over there. And we've been trying to work throughout this year, actually for several months now, trying to get this live stream sync up going. So we finally made it, and we're happy to talk with you. So yeah, welcome aboard.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, it is hard to get everybody's schedules to line up. So it is nice that we're actually finally able to do this, you know?
Yeah, it's for me, it's hard to balance, like, because I got work and then some YouTube stuff and family stuff and other things, so juggling. But I'm really happy to talk with you because I've always been ever since your channel launched, I've been a big fan of just, we've talked about it on your stream, but just a fan of your presentation on the way that you deliver, survival and preparedness type topics in a way that I think is super accessible to a wide variety of people. So I've always really admired that. So I'm super happy to have you on. So,
well, thank you. I appreciate it. I try to keep things in layman's terms so that I can actually understand them as well. You know?
well, that's how you know when you really know something is if you could explain it simply, then you really know it. If you can't explain something in layman's terms or simply, then maybe you don't know it as well as you do. So I'm glad that you're able to present it in a way that's accessible to a wide variety of people. So again, a big fan. Looks like people are coming on board. My two favorite channels, awesome. Exile Review is awesome. That two favorite channels go. Oh, you're gonna be live on the chat too. So okay, so
yeah, I'll jump in once in a while. You might hear some keys, you know.
Yeah, that's okay. Van City Prepper. So yeah, welcome everyone. If you guys have any questions specific to Magic Prepper, just feel free to put them in the chat room. We'll get to as many of them as we can because it's on my channel. I have some questions that I want to ask them, so I get first dibs. But then after that, we'll get you guys on there. Any kind of questions I think are fair game for the most part, except anything kind of real controversial that you could just watch CNN and get on. So I think we're going to focus more on prepping, survival, SHTF, and I kind of want to go kind of in the like a true Hollywood story of Magic Prepper. So some of the behind the scenes stuff too. So let's see. I'm just doing a quick little couple highs here. Crazy Willie Mullins, you guys are awesome. Cool. Oh, 37 miles north of Seattle, so probably like in Bellingham. Awesome. And Magic Prepper is on the live stream. You can see it right there. So if you guys have questions.
Yeah, I'm in the live chat and
yeah, you're real. You're not an AI or anything like that or some sentient being that's
a deep fake maybe, but we won't tell anybody the truth there, you know?
Cool. And by the way, folks, oh man, we have some Puyallup over here too, some locals. Cool. People from all over the place. Okay, here we go. So, by the way, I have information for Magic Prepper. You could go to his YouTube channel. Oh, you're about to crack 100,000, which is awesome. It's a super. That should be happening pretty soon, I imagine. But
yeah, hopefully we'll see what happens. You know.
Yeah. For those of you that don't already have it, it should be in the description box of this particular video. I'm going to put it in the chat room. If you're not already subscribed to Magic Prepper, just trust me on this one. Go click it. Press subscribe, press the notification so you can know whenever he has a video that comes out. Magic Prepper also has a website that you can go check out at magicprepper.com. I was hoping to talk a little bit about the backstory on the name Magic Prepper, because I think that's a good one. And then you could also support Magic Prepper over on Patreon. You should definitely do that. Because, by the way, I was hoping to talk about the artwork too, because I love that as well. You could either be for $1, you could be a prepper. For $2, you could be a marauder, and for $25, you could be a wasteland warlord. So there's a lot of different options over there. So definitely support Magic Prepper in any way that you can. So, well, cool. Well, I thought to kind of kick things off, it'd be fun to talk about kind of the backstory on. For those of you that for those watching that might not be familiar with your channel, but hopefully they already are. But if not, just kind of how you got into prepping, and then maybe the next steps into how you got into wanting to start putting content out there on YouTube and on the internet.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely started prepping in the sense of, having an affiliation with Preparedness at a younger age. And that's because I actually grew up in Florida, and there's a seasonal preparedness time of year where everybody has to get ready for hurricanes, right? So it's just kind of ingrained in me, since I was a child, to get prepared once a year, get your batteries, your water, your flashlights, all that stuff, right? Put everything in the freezer, don't close or don't open the refrigerator, all that stuff. And I think that's where a lot of the foundation started. And then throughout my youth, I was actually involved with Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. And obviously Boy Scouts motto is, be prepared. So I think that being in those organizations really kind of helped kind of get everything to stick. I mean, learning wilderness survival and knots and basic bushcraft skills, and then, going out and, learning some of those, just those outdoors skills that they teach you in those organizations was really valuable to me. And at the time, it was very important to me to do as good as I could in those categories. So that is where a lot of it started. And then, doing hiking trips and, taking trips all over the country, in all honesty, was really eye-opening and kind of, gave me an affiliation for the outdoors. And then I think when it came to actual prepping, like really putting things away and kind of getting involved in the genre, started in about 2010, 2011. And that's when I was still relatively young then. I might be on a slightly younger side of the spectrum. I don't know, but maybe that's
I'm only 21 years old. It's a bit.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I was surprised, but
yeah.
I think back then I had some life events occur. I got involved in things like, shooting sports and stuff like that. And then I also kind of felt like with everything going on in the world that there would be a good reason to at least have some basic concepts of preparedness put aside. At that time, I was actually in a rock band. So that was interesting. And then, we did some touring and stuff like that, but there was always an element of preparedness involved with the supplies and the gear and everything else we had with us in our van. And, we were kind of ready to go, even though we were, out to play music and perform and everything else. All of us had, gear. All of us were like ready to rock. And we were spending a lot of time in national parks and stuff like that at the same time. So, because, we wanted to, but we were also broke. So it was a lot cheaper to go camp overnight than trying to get a hotel, right?
Yeah.
So from there, once I got more established, I guess you would say as an adult, even though I've been an adult for a while, I would say that the idea of preparedness really came full circle over the last 4 or 5 years. And as a parent, which I am, it became a lot more important to me to be able to continue a certain quality of life for my kids and for my wife and our family if things were to ever go south. And, being involved in the genre and being involved with preparedness in general, it's hard not to just constantly analyze what's happening in the world and constantly digest content related to preparedness. And so once you do that for a long enough period of time, all the indications start to come together and you think, man, like this is actually really an issue. And at that time is when I really started, moving up to the next tier, I guess you would say, of my preparedness level.
Yeah, so I think we started right around the same time because I wasn't even really thinking about preparedness until around 2010, 2011. And I just happened to start the YouTube channel in 2011 just because I needed people to talk to because no one wanted to talk about prepping or EDC. It wasn't cool like it is now. Now everyone has a lot of prepping gear with them. So, oh, wow. Mark, geez, thank you. Thank you for the super chat, Mark. Yeah, super appreciated. So, well, cool. And I was curious you said that you're playing in a band. What band do you? Well, I mean, sorry, not what band, but what instrument do you play?
Bass guitar.
Cool.
Right. I think I was made for it because I'm 6'3" and I'm kind of awkward, so it kind of just works out, because that's how your bass player is supposed to be. I'm pretty sure is like the
totally
awkward guy in the back. So
yeah, we're I think we're some of the taller people in the preparedness community because I'm 6'4", you're 6'3", so we're towering over some of the other preppers out there. So.
Yeah, and I think it's good because if ever like teams get decided in the sense of like a dodgeball game, I feel like we'll be picked pretty early,
Yeah, I think we'll crush it. That's awesome. Yeah, you said 4 or 5 years ago is kind of where you went full prepper at that point. It took some time to really go, and it was driven by your kids. It sounded like, which it was for me as well. I felt like I was now responsible for another human being that was totally dependent on me for everything, including safety and including bad things were to happen. And so for me, it was very child driven, and my son's now 11. So that kind of times with my whole preparedness journey. So it seems like we have kind of a similar path towards it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think, throughout the, I guess you would say late 2000s and throughout the last 10 years, we've seen a lot of different examples of what could go wrong on a large scale. And in 2015, my wife and I actually bought our first home, and I was actually in California at the time. And we had moved out into a rural environment. We got a really small piece of land, but it was still much bigger than what you would have in like the suburbs or in the city.
Yeah.
And got ourselves kind of out of the mix, trying to, separate ourselves from any of those problems or existential threats that were going on at the time. So, and that coincided with my first daughter being born. So,
Wow.
yeah. So like, that's when I think I went from bug out bags and camping gear and, almost like a lone wolf concept to actual like long-term preparedness,
Yeah, totally. I think a lot of people like they get in. For me, it doesn't matter how you get into prepping as long as you get into it. So whatever it takes. For me, it was bug out bag driven because I thought I needed to have a bug out bag, and I kind of based my whole channel off that in the beginning. But really, when you have kids and family, it's all about, for me at least, it's all bug in related. Like I want to bug in as much as, if at all possible, because I'd be in a world of hurt especially with a family. If you only have a certain amount of supplies in your bug out bag and food and stuff, and I don't want to go in an urban environment. It's tougher to hunt for things, for example, or set up snare traps by a Starbucks. So,
yeah, I don't know what you'll catch there, but I have a feeling it'll walk on two legs.
Yeah, totally. I like this. He looks like a bassist. Yeah, I agree. Have you ever featured any of the music on your channel?
Actually, my intro music is from my band.
Yeah. Okay, I was wondering that. Okay.
Yeah, so I had to throw a little bit of that in there. I'm like, hey, don't try to copyright me because like that's my stuff,
Yeah, totally. Well, that's cool. It'd be fun to check out some more of the music. So yeah, Christina saying totally bugging. Yeah, I agree. There was a couple questions I saw coming in. I started prepping for zombies in my 20s. Yeah, I used to be anti prepping for zombies, but now I'm pro prepping zombies because if you're prepared for zombies, you're probably prepared for other things.
Right. Yeah, and I will say that some of what pushed me towards preparedness was entertainment. I mean, I'm not going to lie about that, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No.
I think Hollywood has portrayed different versions of what could happen in the sense of like a end of the world scenario, and through a lot of that different entertainment, at least for me, it gives me things to think about or consider, or even get ideas about how I would or would not react to different adverse scenarios. So, especially in my early 20s. Just being able to, watch like something like when The Walking Dead came out, it was a good example of like watching a show and being like, if something like this happened, like what would I even do? And then at least started kind of moving things towards, well, probably this. And then I would actually take action upon making sure I could accomplish that goal,
Yeah, so I think for me, when I watch this kind of end of the world things, or I Am Legend, or 28 Days Later, or some kind of zombie show, like it gives me ideas. Oh, what would I do in that kind of situation? And then usually it goes back into one of my kits or systems, and I try to make improvements on it. So I think entertainment is a good way of doing that too. So there's a lot of folks. Sue, welcome. First time live chatting. Thank you for your support, Sue. Welcome to the live chat. We're happy to have you over here.
Welcome, Sue.
People are commenting on your height. Yeah, you are. Magic Prepper is tall. We're both tall, and we're going to start a prepping basketball league pretty soon. So we're recruiting other tall preppers. So we'll see how that goes.
It's going to be terrible, but worth it.
Yeah. Cool. There's so many different chat already coming in. I wanted to talk really quick on some of the artwork over here. Let me see if I can get it going. There we go. The artwork. Can we kind of talk about? Is this something that you had done, or I was always curious about this because I love this.
So my wife is a digital artist, so that's where a lot of the artwork comes from.
Wait, I'm not showing it. Let's see. How do I get that? I messed up here. Okay, I brought the wrong tab out. Here we go. Sorry about that, folks.
Things happen sometimes.
By the way, I use DuckDuckGo and Brave because it's privacy oriented. So that's, now you can see my browser and my search engine. But yeah. Okay, let's see. There we go. Let's see. There we go. The artwork. So your wife did this one.
Yep.
That is so cool.
Now, yeah, no, she is a very talented artist. So that's something that she does. And as a digital artist, she does a lot of interesting artwork, but I wanted, not only her to be involved with helping me with the channel and everything else, but, to kind of have something that she does and add it to, what I do to kind of make it a team effort. So,
well, and it definitely, it makes you timeless too. So like if you're doing this, the videos and stuff for the next 30 years, it kind of makes you a timeless character. And I just
yeah, I'll take it. I'll take the Simpsons route. Never age.
Yeah, never age. Yeah, that's why I always wear a hat and have glasses, so it's part of my look, and hopefully it helps hide my age a little bit. So,
looks like since I've worn the beanie, no one's asked about whether or not I dye my hair. So that's
yeah. Yeah, I just always have the hat, and when I want to go gray man, I'll take off the hat and I'll have like a baseball cap or something, and no one recognizes me. So, by the way, we have a New York Defiant over here. He says he's here. We could start over. Okay, welcome New York Defiant to the live stream. Let's start it from square one. We're talking to Magic Prepper over here. Yeah, we'll oblige for that. Let's see. I see some comments coming in. Should we? I guess we could talk because I want to get into the survive and thrive in the SHTF because that's I've always been super fascinated about that, especially like in like when I watch entertainment shows like survival based shows. So I was hoping to talk about that, but we're here for the people too. So let's do some rapid fire Q&A. I'm going to scroll up to the top of my screen and let me know if there's a question that you saw. That I'm just going to go start here with Barbara. So Barbara, what is better? What is better, plastic on the inside or outside windows?
I guess if you're referring to sealing your house up for maybe like a pandemic or something like that,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure you seal from the inside.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Seal.
Yeah, because I imagine if it's in the outside and if something happens, it's still going to blow inside, but it could kind of catch things like if we're talking.
Right, it's just a buffer of being able to monitor and maintain without having to exit your dwelling. So
yeah, and I also think that I like having like a gaffer tape to put like little X's or something on, so if the window does break, it's gonna catch it a little bit on that. So
yeah, that's hurricane preparedness 101.
Yeah, there we go.
We won't do much, but we're gonna still tape our windows. You know what I mean? Like that was just like the thing you did.
Yeah.
It's like the lap bar on a roller coaster that goes upside down. You're like, I hope it works,
Yeah. This I don't know if this isn't about a dancer that wears jeans. No, you're on the wrong live stream. I'm sorry. This is a preparedness survival live stream, and we're talking prepping. So
yeah, I've been confused with that before, but I've done a lot of things to try to eliminate that problem, like growing a beard.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we have Amy Fresh as well. Welcome, Amy Fresh to the live stream. I was worried about starting without you here, Amy, but we got you here. So this is kind of the question that I was going to ask right now. So, what's the biggest issue we are dealing with tonight? Seems like the list is never ending. What are some of the issues that you're preparing for now, or you're at least trying to strategize and think about?
I mean, I think the thing that's going to affect us all, rather than just on an individual or like a locally concentrated way, is going to be the inflation in the economy.
Yeah.
All of us will be affected by the fact that things are more expensive. All of us are going to be affected by the fact that we can't afford to prepare as well as we'd like to, or we can't afford food in the same quantities that we used to buy. Shrinkflation's already hit, for a long time now, but combine that with the prices actually going up, and things are getting a lot more difficult to afford. So yes, if you're in an area where some kind of incendiary event's happening right now, of course that's going to be affecting you directly before anyone else. But when we're talking about wide scale and everyone in the country or on the planet being affected, it's all about the economy and the supply chain crisis. So to me, that's still the priority, and that's still what I'm preparing for. Yeah. So when I see deals like at the grocery store where things are on sale to a point where they're very affordable, I jump on it, even if it's stuff I usually wouldn't get possibly. If certain canned goods are going for 25 cents a can, like I'm buying them all. Yeah, and just because right now those cans should probably be costing $1.10, $1.15. So it's and it's not going to get less expensive anytime soon.
And I feel it kind of holds its value in a way. Like you always need to eat, you always need to have that food, and like buying that 25-cent can, it will hold its value even if things actually raise in value. But
yeah,
cool. There's this 24-hour bag is useless. British Columbia SHTF that is happening now. Yeah, I think you bug in if at all possible, folks. Thank you for sharing.
Sorry, I was just going to say there's times where when we lived in the mountains in California, we were on edge to evacuate for wildfires. And in those situations, like having a bug out bag or something is very
totally.
But in general, staying at home is where you want to try to be for as long as possible.
Yeah, there's a few different like emergency events that we would want to evacuate the home. And if your house is on fire, if there's a wildfire, you probably don't want to just hang tight there. And there's other ones, but at least for me, most of the ones I feel like I'd want to. That's where all my stuff is at, like our security, our food, our water, all of that. So
yeah, I can't hear it all.
Yeah, you can't. How does one prep for zombies? I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of zombies just out today with the just watching mainstream news.
Twitter. I would say the most common scenario that we see, especially in zombie entertainment, is the wrapping of a magazine around your forearm and taping it. So if you just do that, you'll be good to go. And I would suggest doing it just in your regular daily life, just in case, you know.
Yeah, that's good. You heard it here, folks, from Magic Prepper. Let me do one more, and then I'm going to be selfish, and I have some questions. So let's see. I watched many movies. People are just talking zombies in general, I think, right now. Yes, we preppers or stores out of food, gas station. Yeah, I've been trying to keep the gas tank as full as possible, and then also trying to keep the pantry going too, and not letting it go down. Barbara's clarifying the question on the windows, and here we go. We'll do a question here. Question: do you test your water filter water before and after? That's law of the minimum.
You know, what I'll say is that I did some water filter testing a long time ago, just to kind of see if it made any, you know, difference. And I didn't have anything that was scientific, let's say. All I could do is detect whether or not there was additional particles within the water, which, you know, it really didn't make much of a difference. But what I could tell is the difference in clarity and color and smell of water based on the filters. So I knew something was happening inside. With water filters, at least when you talk about Sawyer Minis or Life Straws or something of that nature, I mean, I'll be honest, like I haven't sent any water into a water testing facility, but from what I've seen, at least in my own experience, it does do something, which means I tend to believe in what they advertise. And I guess I hope that they do what they say they do, but it's probably not the worst idea. I just haven't actually taken the initiative to do that before.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I've never done it either, at least for prepping stuff. We've done it for our fish tanks and for our water in the yard for our plants, but I guess I just never have done it with the actual water filter review, for example, and we'll send it to a lab, and I think it costs like $40 or something, and they could tell me what's in the water. I think that's a great idea. Law of the minimum. If you see an upcoming video from one of our channels, it was inspired by this comment. So
yeah, no, it's a good idea, definitely.
I'll do one more question here. So Sergio, how much of preparedness should be security?
Well, I mean, I think without security, without proper security, you're setting yourself up for failure in one way or another. And that's just because a lot of other people have the capability of moving on your position. And if you have no security of any kind, then they're going to be able to do what it is they feel is in their best interest, and you won't have much to be able to say about it. So I don't think it should be a main priority. I don't think it should be number one on the list, but I do think that everyone should have some basic concept of security and preps involving security equipment set aside and at the ready, and have some knowledge on how to utilize that equipment and proper training. So that way, if that ever comes to it, you have the ability to basically say no if that's what you need to do. But I think there's a lot of emphasis on it. And I'll be honest with you, I do emphasize it quite a bit because I'm passionate about that topic and that subject. But I also often remind everyone that it should not be number one priority, because we know the basics still are going to be much more valuable in most cases. I mean, I'm sure, you know, we've all been through some sort of natural disaster or some kind of power outage or whatever it might have been. And at the end of the day, I've always utilized, you know, my water and my food and things like my flashlight. And I've never had to actually utilize any of that specific security equipment, which, you know, I feel very privileged to be able to say, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have a place.
Yeah, for me, security is not just my super soakers. It could be home security as far as putting 3-inch screws within your doors, your door jambs and stuff, so it's harder to kick in, or having a security alarm system, a camera system, and all those kind of things. Recently, I at all of our doors, one of the preps that I did, I didn't make a video on it or anything, but I have pepper spray now at each exterior door. So if I'm unprepared, I at least have it's on a little Velcro. Basically, I put a little Velcro patch up at the corner of the door so I could quickly grab it as a backup security measure. But
well, and let's be honest, it's a good get away from me device. You know, it doesn't have to move to that next level if it doesn't need to, but you still have access to it, and it does its job, you know?
Yeah. Here's the question. It looks like George already asked the question. This is the question I was hoping to lead to. And we talked about it before, but why the name Magic Prepper? And I know the backstory, but I think it's an awesome story.
Well, yeah, and there's a couple things around it, of course. One of the things is that I am an avid Magic the Gathering player, right? So everybody, say what you will about that whole concept, but at the end of the day, it's been something that's been part of my life for a very long time. And when I first started the YouTube channel, I wasn't really sure what direction I was going in. Preparedness was huge and a big part of what I wanted to do. And I also had this other affiliation as well. And actually, one of my earliest videos is me at the shooting range, with magic cards. So that's that is something. But what I will say is magic also has alternative meanings, and so I think it applied really well to the concept of preparedness and survival as well. And the definition of magic is along the lines of changing the course of events in like a supernatural or mysterious way. And I feel like when you're talking about wilderness survival or bushcraft or things of that nature, that is often kind of along the lines of what magic is. Being able to start a fire without accelerant in a wet environment is basically magic in its own. Yeah. And being able to change, the course of those different conditions that you're having to deal with and turning them into something that's more beneficial for you to be able to survive is a lot of times, very, I would say, almost like a miracle, when people are able to survive in like super harsh conditions and they build like a snow cave and they find a way to survive even though they shouldn't have. I mean, that's huge, and that's hard to explain other than, possible, mysterious conditions.
Yeah, I'm always super impressed by watching like shows like Naked and Afraid or something. Just starting a fire in wet conditions just seems impossible to me. I would be in a bad place, a world of hurt, if I was in that kind of situation. That's why I have a Bic lighter instead, because I don't want to have to do a friction-based fire in the jungle or anything like that. It kind of leads to the next question that I was going to have, based off of your mottos, basically survive and thrive in SHTF. So do you consider yourself, as far as, I mean, it's magic prepper, but when we're talking survival, for me, like a survivalist and a prepper is kind of, they're adjacent with each other, but there's some differences. What do you consider yourself? Do you consider yourself both a survivalist and a prepper at the same time, or do you lean one way or the next?
Well, I would say that at this point in my life, I'm more of a prepper. And that's just because after having a very intensive career as well as a family, my time to be out in the bush was very limited. Yeah. So in my earlier years, being out in the woods and just, making fire with my hands and building shelters and doing all those things was just part of what I like to do as part of my, free time, basically. But now that I've moved into a different phase of my life, it's much easier for me to accomplish tasks at home where I can prepare and put together projects and get things accomplished and put away food and everything else related to prepping, rather than spending a lot of time out in the bushcraft, hoping I can, build a makeshift shelter all of a sudden. Because, as important as those skills are, and I do think they're important, I also feel that when you have a young family, it's not as practical to assume you're going to be able to walk out into the woods with young children and build a shelter out of whatever foliage you can find and then have some kind of quality of life still in that process. So, as much as I think bushcraft and survival skills are important, I don't think that that's my main prerogative at this point,
Yeah, I definitely consider myself more a prepper and not a survivalist almost in any way. Although I try to, at least with my son, I was a Cub Scout den leader, and now he's in Boy Scouts now, and he gets to learn a lot of the whole be prepared. And I think there's a lot of great lessons that they learn there. And it gets us outdoors and thinking about those kind of terms, but also in a family event type thing. So, and hopefully some of those things kind of rubs off a little bit. So,
well, and one thing I'll say is that when it comes to having those skills, I mean, it can get you out of a bad situation, and it's one of the reasons I actually got LASIK. I got laser eye surgery so that if I'm ever in like a plane crash on a desert island, I'm not like, oh man, my glasses, So, there are skills that, will be with you. And if you were to drop me off in the middle of the woods right now, I would feel pretty decent about my chances. But I would say that I would get lost because I am just really bad with direction. So I at least can be honest with myself about that. And I'm not going to get where I need to go, but I'll be alive.
Yeah, that's awesome. A couple little questions coming in the chat room. I'm trying to stay on top of it to keep in track of everything. So cool. So here's, in your opinion, what is the best fire starter? And I see people are already talking about it in the chat room. So
yeah, well, I mean, in all honesty, I mean, a lighter. I don't know what to say. I mean, it really is. And especially with how cheap and easy it is to just stash away like big lighters. Yeah. They're your best friend. And I carry a mini Bic on me as part of my EDC. It is something that I think everybody should have. And this is going to sound kind of silly, but you're going to like this.
All right.
One of my motivations for that, right? Because I didn't used to, and then people started bringing it up in a comment on a video about my EDC one time, like, well, where's your lighter? And I'm like, you know what? I don't smoke, and I just wasn't really thinking about it. But now, the only thing I can ever think of is that scene in Hocus Pocus when the dude pulls out a lighter to set off the fire sprinkler. Because I'm like, man, first off, I don't know why this like kid is just carrying a lighter around. But secondly, if he didn't have that lighter, I mean, he would have been done for. So that's like my motivation now. I'm like, just in case I ever get Hocus Pocus,
That's awesome. Yeah, for a long time, I totally agree. Like my primary lighter is a Bic lighter, and my backup is a Bic lighter, and then the backup to the backup is a Bic lighter, because I don't want to be there with a bow drill or something like that trying to. And I always felt that there's been a heavy kind of focus towards like some of the more of the primitive fire starting things, but like in an urban environment, at least, like if someone's asking for a smoke, I'm not going to bring out my sparker. Hold on a second. Let me.
I think you should have the redundancy of a ferro rod or a striker, just because they last so long. So if you do find yourself at that point where your lighters have ran out of fluid, now you have something that's going to last way longer than any lighter, and you probably won't have to find another one until you're in a different position where you hopefully don't need it anymore. But like, for everyday use or for everyday carry or for having something in your backpack and stuff like that, I mean, you got to have just a straight up lighter. You really do.
Yeah, I have a big honker ferro rod, and then I use the cotton balls and petroleum jelly is what I use for mine. So we have a real pressing question over here. This is from American Glutton. And what's your favorite sandwich? These are the tough hitting questions that we get over on this live stream. So
you know what? I mean, this is important because it makes a big difference. Okay. Generally, like I'm kind of like a Philly cheesesteak guy. I'm not gonna lie. Like I will get down on a good Philly cheesesteak. And if I have to go with like something cold, then I'm going like an Italian. That's where I'm at. I mean, that's it. Give me some salami and mozzarella, and we'll call it a day. I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm trying to think of what my favorite sandwich is. I think if I had to list one, I'd probably say a Reuben sandwich, like a really good Reuben. If I see it at a restaurant, I'm going to order it with the rye bread, and I want the Russian dressing if I could get it with real cabbage and stuff. So yeah, I'm a Reuben sandwich. So.
Hey. And that works. That works. Yeah. It doesn't age you at all, though.
Okay, thank you. What was I going to say on the light? Oh, back on the lighter thing really quick. I was also too, I don't smoke or anything. So I was like, well, why do I need to carry a lighter? But I kind of feel like once people know you as a prepper, they kind of, you are the person that they come to solve certain problems sometimes. And I was at a birthday party, and it was my kid's birthday party, and they needed to light the cake. And they're like, hey, Cliff, you're a prepper. Do you have a lighter? And I didn't have a lighter on me. I had like some matches in my Altoids kit. And it was like the match broke, and I was like, so it's kind of a fail. So from that point on, I just always carried a Bic lighter with me. So
yeah, I get it.
From Amy Fresh, what's something that people may already have that they don't realize is prep? That's a great question, Amy.
I mean, if you want to get down to it, like bleach is huge. Cleaning concentrates and chemicals is a big thing when it comes to preparedness. Being able to treat things, like water to like wounds to being able to clean, that can be huge. And then other things people already have. I mean, let's think. People have propane for their barbecue grills and stuff like that, and even just a barbecue grill in general. Being able to cook after the power's down, the grid goes down, or whatever it is, that grill's probably still going to light up. So there's those basic household items that everybody generally has, and they just don't think of as being preps. I mean, the batteries in your junk drawer. Man, I have a bunch of others that I was just going to throw out there, like your vegetable oil and stuff that you keep for cooking. Yeah. There's so many different things that you have in your home that are ready to go when it comes to preparedness. But if you don't identify that and you don't organize it, or at least have it in your mind that you would utilize that in those situations, it's probably going to sit there while you're struggling trying to figure out what you're going to do about, maybe treating this questionable water while you have a gallon of bleach sitting in your laundry room,
Yeah. So yeah, I agree that there's all sorts of different home things that could be like the solar lights that you might have in your yard that are used for decoration. You can always use those for candles in a power outage. The water in your hot water tank, you could use that if you don't have any water stored. Let's see what else I saw in the chat room. People are talking about clothes is definitely a good prep, and clothes are a prep. So yeah, there's all sorts of cool things. That's great. Great question, Amy. I'm going to do maybe a couple other questions from the folks. This one, this is kind of more current event related, but I think it'd be a good one to talk about. So, hey guys, question: with a lot of the ships being stuck at sea around the world and how long do you think we have before the supply chain breaks?
So I guess it would really depend on your definition of it actually breaking. But I mean, to me, that would be like a singular day of 0 shipments, right?
Yeah.
Because that to me sets a kind of like an unattainable goal to get back to where we were before. So that one full 24-hour period sets us back a full 24 hours from ever being fully supplied again, just based on the just-in-time delivery system that we all rely on at this point. So, if that happens, that's going to be a really bad situation. But when will it happen, or how long until it happens, is a big question that I can't necessarily answer, because the issue that kind of keeps this whole thing alive as of right now is the fact that it's such a big part of the global economy that anyone that has any kind of vested interest in making money off of any type of sales of products or goods is trying their best to keep this thing alive. So they'll do whatever they have to do to keep this thing rolling for as long as possible until something causes a situation where it literally can't. And that is going to be more of a like a catastrophic scenario, I would assume, more so than them just falling behind to the point where we can't do it anymore. So that's just my thought on it. And I think things like an embargo or a conflict of some kind could cause that situation. But I feel like we would see those things happen before the supply chain itself would actually break. And that's just my opinion based on the fact that there's so much money involved. The people who are involved with that money aren't going to just let it go away.
Yeah. Do you have a video on this topic on your channel?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of different supply chain videos. I don't know if I have any in particular on that, but
yeah, I was gonna put a link on it really quick if we had it, but
yeah, I mean, there are some. I couldn't even tell you the exact title at this point.
Yeah,
what I would say
I know the feeling.
I touch base on a lot of different categories of things that we should be concerned about now, based on the fact that there's a good chance you might not be able to get them at some point because of the supply chain crisis. So that's what you'll find on my channel is, if you're worried about stocking up on over-the-counter medicine, like I have a video about that recently as, being an important thing for you to be doing now, because it's not going to be just available forever if this thing keeps going the direction that it's going,
Yeah, that's one of the things that for me it's a concern. It's because I have to take various medications for my heart from some chemotherapy treatment that I had when I was 20, and I absolutely need it. And so the medication's it's a hard one to prep for because you can't just get 10 years of backup medication and stuff. So for me, that's always been the super stressful one. And fortunately, my doctor, I found out, subscribes to my channel. So we're working on a good system. So there's so many.
That's the key. That's what I need to figure out as well.
Yeah, find a subscriber that's a doctor. Although we are not giving medical advice on this live stream. We are just
not at all.
We're just chatting. So okay, this is from Tasha over here. Do both of your wives have the same urgency to prepare?
So I would say that my wife is definitely on board and she is supportive of the preparedness, but she kind of lets me handle that part of our lives because she, and then she takes care of, our youngest quite a bit because our youngest is still very young. So, my wife is still very busy with her. And then we have 2 other kids as well. So basically, she does her part around the household and helping take care of the family. And, I do my part when it comes to making sure that we're prepared so that our family doesn't have to deal with any of the negative aspects of what could happen if there was an SHTF event. So, I would say counter to what a lot of people probably deal with in their personal lives, at least my wife is very supportive and on board with the whole concept. She's not negative about it and she's not against any of what we try to accomplish. We got property and bought a home out here in the middle of nowhere in North Dakota. And I'm sure a lot of people's spouses, husband or wife, whoever it might not be on board with that concept. So her just allowing us to make that move is a big testament to, her being supportive of the situation.
Yeah. And my wife is into some aspects of the preparedness thing. I like you, I kind of take the lead, but she's super into lately. She's been like a canning like just a maniac. She's canning all like we have some various fruit trees outside, or the neighbors bring over fruit, and she's jarring up, making jams and stuff like that. So she's into certain aspects of it. So and she's also supports with the channel, which I imagine it takes a lot to run a channel and have people kind of controlling things behind the scenes. So they're kind of the unsung heroes oftentimes.
Her just watching the kids while I go film a video is a big deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
They will scream, and in some of my older videos, when I was in a different location, I would record in the basement, and sometimes you'd hear my kids running and their footsteps above me, and you'd hear them screaming at each other, and I'm just like,
yeah. I still, because right outside of this wall it's basically the hallway. So if someone wants to be super loud, they can, and it'll be on the stream, and there's nothing I can really do about it. So
it is what it is.
Yeah. Cool. A lot of great comments still coming in. I'm going to get a couple more of those. So going back to the Magic stuff. So I remember the Magic cards when I was in high school, and I remember there was the guys with like the black trench coats and maybe a beanie similar to you had, kind of like the Jay and Silent Bob types. Were you kind of in that crowd back in school for the Magic cards?
I would say not so much. But I was definitely not your typical high school kid either, so I can definitely say that. But what I will say is something about that game that a lot of people might not realize is that there's a crazy amount of financial value in it, and that some of the things I own regarding that exact game are worth way more money than you would be comfortable with knowing, and that is honestly ridiculous. Okay. And I find it, kind of interesting, but it's its own economy, its own market. And there's 22 million plus players out in the world that actually participate. And one thing I will say is that, there's an interesting bond between people who play that game. So I might at some point actually address the concepts behind that game and how it keeps strategy, math, and basic understanding at the forefront. And it can definitely help keep you sharp and polished during some kind of a long-term scenario where we don't have power, but we still have, certain types of games that can definitely help keep you ahead of the curve and help you strategize and help you think, ahead in the sense of, 2 or 3 steps ahead of your enemy. So there's a lot of value to it. And I actually think it's done a lot, to help me in my life in general, which is interesting. So I just want to say that, there's a lot of money in it, so don't scoff at it because people have become straight up millionaires because of that game.
Yeah, one of my friends when I was growing up, he got into the Magic card games, and he made a ton of. He was basically become a millionaire by the time he was like in the early 20s or something like that. It was pretty impressive. So yeah, definitely don't scoff at that. So, and I also think it's what you're talking about is having that community aspect. I find that in like preparedness, it's something to kind of consider. Like here in the Seattle area, like if you were in a bad situation, an SHTF situation, you could use some camaraderie. Like if you're 2 Seahawks fans, if you see someone that has like the sports team that you like, it could make that person be more of a person and not like you might have a little bit of instant camaraderie and something like that. But I don't know.
No, I agree 100%. And I joke sometimes with some of my buddies, like if I walk in the wasteland, I drop my bug out bag, I pull out a deck of Magic cards, and some guy walks up like, "Hey, what's that?" And next thing you know, you're playing a game of Magic. Suddenly you have a mag, But I actually will address that on more of a serious note because there is some application to that in the sense of what you were referring to. So if you're in Seattle and there's a large scale emergency going on, Seahawks gear is what you're going to be wearing, right? Yeah. So don't put yourself in a position that's going to create more tension for you, AKA, if you're in Oakland and you're wearing 49ers jerseys or whatever it may be, right? Like there's a lot, and I know the Raiders moved to Las Vegas, but still, what I'm trying to say is you want to at least emulate what's accepted as the norm in the area you're in. And so that exact concept can be applied to almost like a gray man status. I would not wear an out-of-state sports team's clothing in a different state during a large scale of disaster because everyone's going to assume you're not from around here.
Yeah, totally. You said it much better than what I said it, because that's what I was thinking. I wouldn't want to wear a 49ers jersey or something like that out here. It's a bad situation. Wait a second. I'm not helping that guy. He's a Niners fan. I think that might still carry weight in a SHTF situation. I think it's a great video topic, but that's cool. There's some rapid fire. I'll do some rapid fire Q&A because man, the time's just flying by way too fast, and there's I'm about 15 minutes behind on the chat room chat. So let me know if you see anything. Again, we're talking to Magic Prepper. If you're just tuning in now live, welcome to the live stream. And we're talking to Magic Prepper about all sorts of things, kind of the backstory about his channel. You could support out Magic Prepper on YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, search for him. You'll find him over there. You can also support him on magicprepper.com. In addition to go over the page onto Patreon, and you should become, at the very least, become a prepper. Second, become a marauder, and if you're super cool, become a wasteland warlord. And that's the goal that we want for that. So
I gotta have a good time, I really do.
I love it.
If it's all doom and gloom, then it's like not even worth being part of your life, in my opinion. I still like to enjoy myself and kind of keep a lighter tone if possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, preparedness is such a kind of a downer of a topic that we're just talking about all these like emergency horrible things that could possibly happen. And if you're so doom or gloomer, it becomes super depressing, I find. So I anything that could brighten the mood on some of these dark topics I'm all for that. That's why I'm always smiling in my videos, because of that. I don't know. Some people make fun of me about that, but I don't care. Quick question is, let's see, does Urban Prepper have an email? Yeah, send it to the urbanprepper@protonmail.com, and it'll be super encrypted. So no one could. Urban Prepper, any viewers are concerned about having a security tool in their home, a 5-pound fire extinguisher works great. Spray and bonk. Yeah, great tip there for Anchorage Prepper. I totally agree on that. So again, but we're not condoning violence on this channel, but I think it's a good tip.
Well, and honestly, you'd be surprised how many people don't have a fire extinguisher at all.
Yeah,
it is something definitely worth having.
Yeah, it's and I definitely like going with the ones that are I find the ones with metal handles are usually refillable versus like a one and done type fire extinguisher. But cool. Let's see. How much would you say your vehicle capabilities matter? That's from Ben.
Well, here's my thought. If you have a reliable, dependable vehicle, that's all that really matters. Because at the end of the day, if you can get to point A to point B on a regular day, you're doing good. Because a lot of people can't even rely on that, right? And if there's an emergency and you just have to get back home or something, that's really what you should be concerned about, is your ability to make it through just your basic daily, even local emergency. But when you're talking like large scale SHTF or like a long-term event of some kind, your vehicle's capability is only going to go so far. I mean, a lot of people really want to have like super off-road capability and all that kind of stuff. But if you don't have a reason for why you need it, if you're not driving into the middle of the wilderness to get to your bug out location, or hopefully you have a lot of supplies already, then what is that vehicle really going to do for you other than draw attention? And at the same time, in a large scale event, if a lot of other vehicles, let's say, are disabled for some reason, like an EMP or whatever, but maybe you still have a vehicle, you're literally painting a target on yourself as being the only person in town who's driving around. So there's a lot of different things you have to consider when it comes to that. So my personal approach to the whole situation is just to have quality, reliable vehicles that on my daily life for a daily emergency can get me through what they need to, have less likelihood of breaking down when it's negative 30 degrees here, and people literally pass away on the side of the road in this state quite often for that reason, and then can get me back home hopefully in a decent amount of time if something big ever happens. But that's like my main concern, not so much for after the fact, because I think there's a lot of negatives to that.
Yeah, one of the things I've been diving into is I felt that kind of going to back to the supply chain question that we had earlier is just, hey, if I couldn't go get my vehicle repaired or have an oil change or something, I feel like I need to have some stash on hand for that. So that's one of the things I'm actively working on now. I'll probably do a video on it. As far as all the videos I do, it's usually some prepping project that I'm working on, then I document it and share it, and then go to the next project. But yeah, I think I totally agree. I totally aligned with that. So yeah. I feel like we should probably do like a rapid fire round, like where we just do a quick try to catch us up in the chat room because time is flying. So I'm going to go rapid fire. This is from Michael. Have any of you guys done a video on top 10 or 20 list of what not to do during SHTF if you decide to bug in? Well, we already said don't wear an opposing team's jersey during the city. So
I have a video that's about, some of the most important things for bugging in. And then I have like a top 10 list of like the worst prepper mistakes. So those
here it is, the top 10 worst ideas for preppers right here. So let me copy that link and let me get it into the chat room. All right.
I like that the preview for that shows a bunch of cases, and I'm like, man, that gives people the worst idea about what I think.
Cool. I just put it in. I put it in the chat room for Michael. Okay. We're in rapid fire mode, folks. I'm trying to catch us up in the chat room because they go by really quick. These aren't questions. Let's see. Sorry. Let's get back over here. There we go. Okay, folks. I'm looking for questions. Anything that has a question mark at the end of it because I'm trying to catch us up. Whereabout are you located? He said North Dakota. The last time I was in North Dakota was probably 20 years ago, I think. But
Yep. Yeah. And I moved here based on circumstance in the sense of a job relocation and financial necessity. I didn't necessarily pick North Dakota specifically for preparedness, but I will say it does have some positives, especially in the sense of population.
Yeah, totally. Let's see. We already kind of talked about this one, Dylan, as far as how many months until the crash. We don't know when the crash is, but I know that winter is coming, and I'm getting ready for the winter. But I'm not saying that that's what anything's going to happen. But I'm always concerned during winter times. Okay, I'm looking at my thing. I'm at the 6:42. So any chats that came from 6:42. So I'm 10 minutes behind. Oh, we have a super chat over here. Great. I'm a prepper for a while, but ended up. Geez. That's from Two Tone Jake. Mexican.
Well, I mean, here's what I'll say about that is that you just need to make sure the people that you rely on now are at least on board with the concept of preparedness, or at least get them, used to the idea. And then if you're already relying on those people, just make sure that you do what you can to try to share some of your information or knowledge with them, and maybe encourage them to be more prepared than they are already. And I think that's the best you can do. If you have to rely on other people for your care, you have to hope that those people are going to help you through any kind of an emergency.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, best of luck, Two Tone Jake, on everything, and thanks for the super chat, by the way. Let's see. Here's another good one. Any tips for route planning to get to a safe location through semi-urban environments? I always thought that like railroad tracks and pathways would be a good one. That's a little off a little bit, but you might be able to ride a bike on the side of it, not on the tracks, of course, but.
I think that the thing I'd be most concerned about is just avoiding anywhere that is going to be volatile. So if there's parts of town that you avoid now, you should definitely avoid them after a situation, okay? And then try to find alternative routes. That's really going to be your best friend. It's not just about your one singular route of getting to the safe location. It's about having the backup routes for if that road is blocked, or if a tree fell down, or if there's some sort of danger ahead that isn't worth the risk. So multiple routes is really where you need to be at. And of course, the major roadways are going to be avoided due to the fact that that's everybody's idea.
Yeah, totally. Another one that there's in where we live, there's different bike routes and stuff that might be a possibility that in urban, at least if we're talking urban environment. But Lainey's been asking this question. I missed it the first time, but can we get one of the prepper channels to test which, if any, solar generators would work best during a harvest right in SHTF situation? I know a lot of the prepper channels like the energy products for their solar, and I think Jackery also has some too. But do you have any thoughts on that? We were just talking. We were talking backstage about solar and things.
My thing on that question itself would be how valuable a freeze dryer is going to be if you're already in SHTF at that point. The value of them right now is being able to store a lot of food away for a long-term situation. But at that time, I would assume during like an actual SHTF event, you'd have the food you already stored using your freeze dryer, and then any food you're now acquiring is probably what you should be consuming. So if you're acquiring enough food to continually freeze dry during SHTF, is it SHTF then? I don't know,
Yeah, that's one of the weird things. Like during the past, almost 2 years now, and all the stuff going on, where it's been an emergency situation. It's hard. It's been hard for me to kind of determine when it's become an emergency situation versus what's normal. It all almost kind of blurs together. So sometimes it feels like if an emergency situation was actually happening, like unless it's something really extreme, like 9/11 or something like that. But for these boiling the frog type situations, sometimes it's hard to kind of determine if you're actually in that emergency. But I totally agree with like the rotation part of things, so for sure. Someone said, does he cast prepping spells? Yes, I believe you do, right? Is that?
I do. I inadvertently use a lot of hand symbolism in my videos, so I guess that's where it all comes from. And luckily, thanks to that, which is literally just how I talk, But apparently I am Illuminati and I'm a reptilian, and I also have ties to like masonry and stuff like that. So there's a lot of great stories that have been created about me due to my hand signals, and I'm actually okay with it because it's interesting to me too.
That's awesome. Yeah, so if you want to cast a spell on someone, I think that's probably a perk for the Wasteland Warlords. So if you go over to Patreon, and if you want Magic Prepper to cast the spell, make sure that you do that. So I think the Masons are super fascinating. I as a hobby, I clean gravestones, and I've been working on this Masonic cemetery for this past year, and restoring a lot of, because there's a lot of historic figures in it, and I think the kind of the history and the handshakes and all that kind of stuff is super fascinating. Even at least at this particular graves site, like where the graves are located is based off of where they're located at the Masonic Lodge, I guess, like where they sat, which I thought was pretty fascinating. So there's all this kind of cool things. So
very symbolic and organized. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So, Connie, you just liked the stream. Great. Thank you for liking the stream. Make sure that you click the thumbs up and share this with your friends. And if you're watching the rerun, and if it's the year 2025, we're currently wrapping up 2021, and we hope that things are well in 2025. So thanks for watching the rerun. I'm trying to get us caught up so we're current, and then I want to talk about like kind of what's next for Magic Prepper and the channel, and kind of the things that are upcoming. So yeah. I think I'm doing pretty good on catching us up so far. There's a lot of great just chats going on. People talking about fire extinguishers. Let's see. Some people are talking about some current event stuff. If you have some of the specific current event stuff in the news, it's on every channel. It's on every Facebook and Twitter things. You probably get some answers there. So, but if you want nerdy prepping stuff, or if you want to cast spells on people, you come to the right stream. So here we go. Let's see. Jersey. These aren't questions. Okay. Oh wow, we got city prepping. It just came up. What's up, ladies? What's up, city prepping?
I try to wear my best makeup for him tonight.
Yeah, yeah. I went through makeup and wardrobe too, and I knew city prepping's there. So.
Yeah, you know how YouTubers are. So
yeah, that's cool. Let's see. Here we go. East Coast tsunami event, La Palma. How to prepare? I have some ideas, but I'm curious. But
well. All right, so first off, if you're on a coastline, you should already have an evacuation route figured out for any type of disaster scenario. We know that hurricanes and cyclones and stuff exist, and nor'easters and everything else happen, so you should just be able to have a way out. But the biggest thing for me is when it comes to those catastrophic events that are 1 in a billion chance but could technically happen, you're really preparing for the aftermath of it, not so much the actual event itself. So obviously there'd be evacuations and stuff like that. It'd be hard to get out in time. And sometimes that's just based on circumstance. We can't all just know exactly when to leave. But if you survive the initial impact, then you are really preparing to deal with what happens after. And I think that's really what you should be focused on more so than the event itself.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's some horrible tsunamis, but it's kind of, at least I've never had to go through. I think you kind of have to stack rank things as far as probability and stuff. So I think you're more likely to have a power outage and fire and stuff than a tsunami. But I know that in Seattle, there's a company, I forget the name of the company, or if they're even still around, where they basically made these like huge kind of round balls that you would go in, and it has like air and everything. So it's like a tsunami, like it's like a little thing that you go in, and the tsunami basically picks you up, and you can survive it that way, and it rolls you around. I thought it was pretty cool. I wish I would have done a video on it. I haven't really thought about it too much. Where we're located, it would take like an end of the world type tsunami to really get where we're at, because we're a little bit up on a hill. So it would be pretty humongous, and I'd probably have bigger other things to worry about too. Here's another question from Michael. And again, we're coming up to the hour point already. This has been flying by super quick, and I think you're getting to a lot of questions. And question: what are your thoughts on the huge rise in demand of Atlas bunkers? Do you feel like something bigger is coming than just shortages and economy crash? They're definitely popular with a lot of the famous folks. Not city prepping famous, but we're talking Kardashian famous.
I would say that I actually reached out to Ron from Atlas recently.
Yeah,
I'm gonna talk to him on the channel at some point here. But I just think that when things are at a relatively obvious level of problematic right now, that if you have the disposable income and the resources, why wouldn't you invest in one, right?
Yep.
So if you're well off, you're wealthy, there's no reason not to get something that could literally save you and your family from just about any kind of event you can think of. And in that situation, it's like a no-brainer. So if all of us, were multimillionaires, we probably all have similar bunkers already. And it just becomes a financial game at that point. But I think, if I had the chance to buy one and I had the resources and to be able to do it, I would,
Yeah, totally. I wonder if some of when you hear it, because I've heard about this too, as far as famous people getting the bunkers. And I wonder if, is it for survival purposes, or is it to have they want to smoke pot down there or something, or have band rehearsals, or play a hot game of Magic cards all night and all those kind of things.
Well, it could be at this point even
studio,
like a status symbol.
Yeah, it could be a stat. Yeah, or a super fancy wine cellar or something like that. So actually, it'd be a pretty cool band rehearsal place you could play, and you wouldn't bother any neighbors. So.
Well, I can tell you that, if you go to, some super wealthy person's house and you're also wealthy and they're like, hey, have you checked out my bunker? And then you tell them you don't have one. I mean, that becomes the issue now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't care about your family,
Yeah. Yeah. But it might be for emergency purposes, and maybe they know stuff that we don't. But it'd be nice to be super wealthy so I can get one, because I think they're awesome in Ron's characters.
Yeah.
Tom, thank you for the super chat. Just saying hello with the $4.99. Thank you so much for that. Let's see. I think we have time for a few more. I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what's upcoming for your channel. Like, we're moving into 2022. We're almost to December now, and I was just curious, like, what's the direction that you see your channel going for the short-term future, and then 2022 and beyond? You're cranking out videos basically every other day on super valuable topics. Again, I always have enjoyed and the presentation style that you put on all the videos. But can you talk a little bit about what's upcoming, what's behind the scenes, or anything like that for the Magic Prepper YouTube channel?
Yeah, well, so I have some different ideas that I'll be trying out here relatively soon. I'm going to be investing in some better equipment, which is always a lot of money, but it is something that I feel is important because I want to produce something better for the people who've supported me this whole time. I feel kind of obligated to kind of keep pushing the envelope and doing a better job, I guess you would say, So I think you can expect more quality content in the future. I think that you can expect more better production value videos, maybe not in the same sense as what you might see on, like mainstream YouTube channels. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, at least maybe a couple different camera angles, maybe a little bit more actual footage of some of these discussions in practice and things like that, So I'm hoping to get outdoors more too and get some more of that content as well. As much as I feel that prepping is, mainly where I'm at this point in my life, I think bushcraft and survival has its place. I think doing things like a mock bug out or even, rucking out in the woods can have its value as well. So I'm going to get out and do some more of that, do some hunting, do some stuff like that as well. And then recently I've been involved with a local group that is pretty well organized and put together, and I'm hoping to get some more stuff worked out with them. So that should be a good time as well. Honestly, though, I'm just going to try some new things out. And if I do hit this milestone of 100,000 subscribers, which I literally never thought was going to happen, so I'm very, taken back by the whole thing. But I want to kind of utilize that as kind of a starting point of, all right, let's see if we can evolve a little bit. Let's see if we can move things to that next level, and all the support that I've received from, many people here in the chat tonight who are super awesome people.
Yeah.
It's just really, it's been so rewarding and so awesome to be able to network on this platform that I feel like I have to give back more,
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to all the new content that you have coming in, and I'm sure we'll notice, like, oh man, I've got a new camera, I got a new background. I always felt like, as like the urban prepper, that I need to be out in the urban environment and not just be like in my office, because it's being out there, I thought, is important for my brand too. So late, Jake, you're a little late. So it's okay. You're watching the Bears live stream. That's okay. So we're just almost wrapping this up. We're talking over to Magic Prepper, finding out a lot more of the stuff that's upcoming from the channel. I think it's great that to always be changing and not do the same thing over and over again. to have like a dynamic channel that kind of changes with the times, and it's constantly improving and raising your own personal bar. So I think that's like the awesome approach to do for it. And I'd love to see some of the bushcrafting stuff, because I always find I always like those kind of things. I like watching them on TV. I like watching them on the YouTube channels as well. So
yeah, I love the concept of shows like Alone and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a weird, fantasy or desire of mine. Like, just drop me off in the woods. Let's see what happens,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I keep getting a lot of, I've been wanting to do more of like a mock bug out scenario in an urban environment. Nowadays it's, years back when I first started a channel, I was organizing some of those. It's a lot safer now. It's there's so much going on in the city, and now with the family and stuff, you have to be a little careful on that. But I think with the right group of people, it'd be super fun to document. The problem is just trying to get the time to, hey, but see a family. I'm going to be gone for 72 hours on making a YouTube video. So
yeah. Yeah, you have to definitely compromise. So
yeah, so cool. Yeah, Naked and Afraid. Yeah, that's one of my. I love watching that. Not for the naked part of it, but for the survival situation stuff.
Yeah, and that's how I am anytime I close my eyes in the shower, because it's just like, I still think about Psycho, and I'm like, I just can't help it.
Yeah, if you were on Naked and Afraid, I don't know if you watched that show. What would be your 2 items that you would bring with you? Let's say that you brought a fire starter and you brought a big knife. If you could pick 2 other items, what would you bring with you on Naked and Afraid?
If I could have 2 others than the most obvious ones, huh?
Yeah.
Well, let me think about that. I would probably bring some kind of cordage, because I just feel like it's so functional and so useful for being able to like create shelter, or just be able to, create traps or whatever else you want to do with it. There's so many applications to some kind of, cordage that you could get yourself into a lot better position just utilizing that, and man, trying to think what else would be really.
We have the tough questions here on the Urban Prepper live stream show.
Probably a container of some kind. So like a stainless steel pot or water bottle that's, single walled, because I just would want to have the ability to like boil water, cook, just have water in a container and not have to worry about constantly trying to gather it. So I think those would probably be the next 2 I would choose. Yeah,
totally. I agree with that. I mean, if I had a big knife and I had a fire starter, I would definitely want the container for boiling water. And it kind of depends on which region, because on those shows when the bugs come out, that would break me really quick. So I don't know if some kind of net. Sometimes you see that they leverage that as a mosquito net, and they could use it for fish as well too. But
I am extremely lucky, and I don't get bit by bugs, and I don't know why.
Yeah,
I just don't. So it's actually a nice thing to have,
It's you cast a spell on all the bugs, and they don't bite. They all come to me and bite me, because I could go outside right now and the bugs will come after me. So
I think it's my reptilian blood, actually.
Okay. That's funny. Well, folks, we're past the hour mark. I don't want to keep you too late, and I gotta have to go get dinner with the family. But we've been talking with Magic Prepper on this live stream. If you happen to watch it live, thank you for tuning in live. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button, because it helps with those pesky algorithms that don't like preppers or family friendly prepping shows and stuff. So
sometimes they really don't like us. Yeah.
So make sure that you like it. Go visit Magic Prepper. Let's get them over to 100,000. I want to see this. This is soon. So it'll be a nice celebration. Hopefully there's a nice celebration video for that. Support Magic Prepper on his YouTube channel. Also go over to the .com, where you can find out more about Magic Prepper. You could even contact him. There's terms of service, and you could also support him over on Patreon. And again, if you want Magic Prepper to cast a spell on someone, go with the Wasteland Warlords. That's the one that you're going to want to get. And anyone that's you could talk with him about that, kind of see if that's an available perk. At the very least, try to go with the Preppers or the Marauders for that one, and if not, go to the Wasteland Warlords, which is an awesome name, and I love it. So everyone's saying saying hi and stuff. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching this live stream, and get Magic to 100K. Yes. That's awesome.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, cool. And thank you for taking the time. And first off, thank you for having me come on your live stream. And thank you for coming. We returned the favor, and now you're over here. But I feel like we are just getting started. I feel like we need to do it again. So
I am down. Trust
Are
me.
you down? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
doing a live stream every week, you're like, well, who should I talk to next? You know?
Yeah, well, there's so many different people that I admire and respect, and they're not only colleagues but they're fellow preppers, and they're super interesting people. And then learning about all the the band stuff and the magic card stuff. That's the stuff sometimes you don't get that just from a single video. So I love doing the live streams, and then plus there's no editing afterwards, so it's the pressure's on not to drop F-bombs and stuff like that. So, yes, do it again. Yes, yeah, we're gonna start arranging it soon. So yeah, check mark. So, so folks, if we didn't happen to get to one of your questions that you had in the chat room, feel free to leave it as a comment of this video, and we'll try to, at least I will. I'll try to go back and answer anything that questions that we weren't able to get to live. It's kind of tough when there's so many different chats going through there. But stay tuned for more videos. We're gonna have Magic Prepper back on because it went by too fast, and that's usually when it was a fun time. So
I had a good time.
Yeah. So thanks again, man, and stay tuned for more emergency preparedness videos, and stay safe out there, folks. See you next time.
Thank you all.